Good evening and welcome to NEWSBREAK Live. I'm Hibah Samad. Thanks for joining us on this special edition as we take a look at Torrance's 2018 participation in the annual Tournament of Roses Parade. We'll be giving you a first-hand look tonight from decorating day to parade day. Southern California's New Year's tradition, the Rose Parade, was another success this year. But the parade wouldn't be possible without the thousands of volunteers that place each piece of flower and other natural materials to make their float come to life. Let's take a look at Decorating Week. The clock was ticking as volunteers worked diligently to cover their 2018 float that depicted the life on the Madrona Marsh Preserve. The float was 16 foot tall and 35 feet wide during Decorating Week and 2 dry days. More than 280 volunteers worked to cut, glue, and paste a wide range of flowers and other dry materials to make their float called Protecting Nature, the Madrona Marsh Preserve. The marsh is a gem in the city and has the only vernal pool habitat that exists in Southern California. While this video was a few days into Decorating Week, the float would soon have orange marigold petals and black onion seeds on the monarch butterflies, which flutter over a large arched tree branch decorated in oak cork and other mosses. One of the highlights of the float this year were the large egrets made up of white coconut flakes with dendrobium orchid florets with beaks of yellow split peas individually applied. Eventually, more than 8,000 roses made up the deck of the float, including a special rose the city received this year that was named after it from the American Rose Society. The city had decorators between the ages of 13 to 90 years old. For the first time this year, American Rose Society members also helped decorate the float. Later on in the show, we will meet the West High School student who is the mastermind behind the design and how she came up with the idea to capture the beauty of the Madrona Marsh Preserve. And for many of the decorators, this has become an annual tradition. We met one volunteer who has devoted her time for the past 26 years. Dawn Hamilton has an art degree but doesn't use it at her current job. So for the past 26 years, she's put her skills to use by decorating the Torrance Rose Float. This year, her project was to work on the Allen hummingbird. She glued feathers of orange marigold petals and saffron spice with the green button palms on its head. Hamilton has been a lifelong Torrance resident.
I enjoy the fine details. I'm a detailed person, so I like doing the detail work and seeing it on the float at the end of the parade.
The float received the Mayor's Award this year, which is in the float design category for the most outstanding float from a participating city. One of the highlights leading up to Parade Day is when city officials make a stop to see the float in the works. As volunteers continued decorating the float, they had some special visitors at the Fiesta Floats facility in Irwindale. Mayor Patrick Fury and council members came out to get a first look, and this year was extra special as they remembered former Mayor Dee Hardison, who passed away recently. She had volunteered for the past 40 years decorating the city's float. In her honor, 40 roses on the float were placed to symbolize her dedication. Mayor Fury placed the first one during his visit. For many of the Torrance council members, visiting the float for the first time is a tradition for their families too.
What I really like is coming out here and seeing it through the eyes of, well, this year I have my grandson from Indiana, Braden Collada, and the first time they see it, it's just wonderful. So it's a family tradition.
For many years, we've been making a difference in the city of Torrance, and I'm so happy and honored that we are featuring Madrona Marsh, a beautiful habitat right in the center of our beautiful city, where so many natural plants and species live and make their habitat.
This year is really interesting because we're celebrating our Madrona Marsh, which is one of those great things that we have in our city that nobody else has, a natural preserve. And the representation is just fantastic. There are 2 big egrets on the top, and it looks like you're actually in the Madrona Marsh.
The city of Torrance has participated in the Rose Parade since 1914 and has brought home various awards in categories including First Prize, Merit Award, Red Rose Award, Grand Marshal's Trophy, Princess Trophy, and many more. This year they also had a special partnership with the American Rose Society as more than 30 members from around the country helped decorate the Torrance Rose Float.
We have over 30 members coming from around the country to decorate the float, be at the judging, and then watch the float go down Colorado Boulevard. In addition, our president and our executive director, Pat Shanley, and Laura Hibah are going to be riding on the float as well.
The American Rose Society had its president and one more member ride on the float this year. They also celebrated its organization's 125th anniversary. The barn was abuzz for Judging Day as the Torrance Rose Float was ready New Year's Eve. Decorators rushed to put the final last touches as the colorful float looked spectacular. Irene Say, West High School student who designed it, had a lot to say about the float.
I came here for officials night and all the scaffolding was up, but without all the scaffolding and everything actually completed, it's just breathtaking, especially because I wasn't expecting all the roses to be here and all these flowers here either. So it's just whoa, it's like a whole new float.
And soon it was time for the parade, and soon it was time for everyone to see the butterflies flutter and the music come on.
Taking a lot of notes. I think that's a good sign. I think they liked our little frog and our material near the back of the float. They were really paying a lot of attention. I'm hoping that's a really good sign.
I started crying because their float's so beautiful.
All the hard work paid off, so that's awesome. Really emotional, really.
During judging time, floats are more than 90% covered with natural materials. There were 3 judges and they granted awards based on criteria such as creative design, floral craftsmanship, artistic merit, computerized animation, thematic interpretation, floral color presentation, and dramatic impact. The hard work finally paid off as completed floats made their way down Colorado Boulevard, and it was quite the sight to see. I was out there on New Year's Day, and here is my story. Fluttered their wings along with 2 proud white egrets hovering on top of the 2018 Torrance Float. And more than 8,000 roses intermingled each other on the base, as you could see gorgeous touches of marigold petals, exotic orchids, and even coconut flakes.
City of Torrance, protecting nature, the Madrona Marsh Preserve.
Hard work by nearly 300 volunteers made the city's Protecting Nature, the Madrona Marsh Preserve float come alive in Pasadena. And for the spectators, getting the best seat in the house took some resilience.
We got here around 8 o'clock, me and my family. Actually, my family, they're sleeping in the car, so kind of had to be here taking care of the spot.
Octavio Flores, along with thousands of fellow spectators, set up along Colorado Boulevard, and Flores did what he could to stay warm.
Something to sleep on for a little while, like 2 hours, 3 hours, but sometimes you can't sleep because it's noisy, but it's fun.
A family tradition for Flores, they were thrilled to be back after 12 years. He says this time it was extra special.
It means a lot. Actually, me and my wife, we're going to be 25 years marriage. So it's kind of something to remember.
A day many people here have been looking forward to will also remember. Heaven Gomez brought out her family members for the first time.
It's a nice thing to do. It's a good time to spend time with your family, watch the floats, and they're really pretty.
And as the clock ticked, the excitement grew and spectators waited patiently for their favorite part, the parade. Mark Coleman, a lifelong Torrance resident and business owner in the city, couldn't get enough of the float this year.
We do photo walks at Madrona Marsh, and the marsh is near and dear to me. I may spend many days and many mornings walking the marsh and seeing the beauty and the nature there right in the middle of the city, and I love it. It's just fantastic.
Coleman owns Paul's Photo along Hawthorne Boulevard, and every year he brings people to the parade to photograph the beautiful floats.
I really love the big egret. And I like all the marsh guys are on the float. because I see them at the marsh every day. I see what they do and appreciate their hard work to keep things going at the marsh and keep the marsh pristine and beautiful like we need it to be.
Float riders this year included staff from the Madrona Marsh Preserve and American Rose Society members, and leading the float was West High School student Irene Say, who was responsible for creating the float design.
It's really amazing. It's like a whole new experience because I guess self-proclaimed artist, and I just like to draw a lot. So just like being able to see it come to life is just something completely different.
Say, who is also a volunteer at the Madrona Marsh, says she wanted to feature the beautiful gem in the city. The 45-acre preserve that is home to more than 1,000 species of rare animals and plants.
That frog in the back, because I saw people actually gluing each individual bean on it, and I was like, oh boy, that's some real dedication there, buddy. So I'm just really proud about those people just like continuously and meticulously gluing on the beans.
I've been decorating for about 15 years. I decorated younger, and then I brought my girls into it when they got a little older. And then my family came into it, and so my entire family, we all participate, and we really enjoy doing it. And on the float this year, it's for Madrona Marsh, where the theme is making a difference, and so preserving Madrona Marsh is making a difference.
And there were some tedious parts in making it.
The log, which is it's cork, and so there were different sizes, and trying to keep that applied on there was really tricky. We had to do some finagling, some mystery work, getting it on and getting it to stay.
And once again, the float made its mark in Torrance history by bringing home an award. The Torrance float was one of 44 floats that traveled 5.5 miles for millions to watch. Well, in just 2 minutes, Torrance Rose Float Association President Beverly Findley will join me live to talk about this year's Rose Float success. We'll be back in just a few.
When I was in high school, I was physically at school, but my mind wasn't at school. I had problems at home, and that's hard when you feel like you're doing it alone. That's when I met an artist, my mom, as I'll call her. She started helping me a little bit, like, Nia, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but your future is more important. She's my strength. Just being a support for those hard days and those hard nights, not giving up on me. Thank you to my mama. I wouldn't have did this if it wasn't for her. Today is for my mama and everybody who had my back. It takes a village to help somebody get their diploma. Some people would think, well, maybe it's really not that big of a deal, but it really is. It changes your whole life.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to the second half of NewsBreak Live, and joining me is Beverly Findley, the Torrance Rose Float Association President. Happy New Year, Bev.
Happy New Year to you and to the city of Torrance.
Thank you for coming, and this is the 63rd float the city is participating in, or participated, excuse me, and can you believe it's already over?
Yes, I can. And now we're all going to rest for a little bit, but not really, because we have to get started already on the new float.
What was this year's experience like?
It was very, very exciting this year. You know, as you had mentioned earlier, we had people from 13 to 90 decorating, so we had, you know, cross-generation, and it's really great to see that how they all work together.
You know, every year you've seen the float come to life. What was different this year? Any unique stories?
Yeah, this year one of the most unique stories was the Rose Society people coming out, and as you had talked before, there were over 30 who came from across the country to work on our float. And we actually took one night on the 29th and set it aside for them so that they could all decorate together. Of course, many of them were there all week. And Pat Shanley, the president, and Laura Hibah, the executive director, all were both float riders.
And this year was different because earlier this year, the American Rose Society presented the city of Torrance with a flower named after it.
Yes.
So how was it actually seeing that flower on the float?
Well, it was, you know, because when they presented it to the city, it was not in the best of shape because it had traveled so far. But seeing it on the float, I mean, the flower is absolutely gorgeous. I was amazed at how beautiful it was and how many they were able to provide for the float. It was fantastic. One other unique thing that happened this year, you had mentioned, you know, Dee Hardison had decorated for 40 years, so we put 40 vials on the float for her. And this was one of the only years that I can remember in history where we were back in Torrance by 8 o'clock the night of the 30th. Normally we're there past midnight putting the final touches on. So with all the help of all these volunteers, we got finished a little early this year so we could get a little sleep.
Yeah, because speaking of volunteers, they're working around the clock. As I mentioned, there were almost 230 volunteers working.
That's correct.
And how is it? Some of them are working double shifts, and this is all volunteer work for the city.
Yes. Well, some of these people look forward to it all year long. It's like their thing to do after Christmas. So, you know, we have people that come out early the weekend after Thanksgiving, and the following weekend we have to start cutting all the dry materials, and so that we have them ready to put on the float. And then we work however many hours it takes, but we run a day shift and a night shift, and they come up and work. And like you said, there are some people who work both shifts. There's some people who kind of overlap, and then of course we have our board members that stay there the whole time and make sure our volunteers have food and beverages and take care of everything that needs to be done for them.
And for many at home, I don't know if they know, but besides the sketch and the volunteers, there's also a third party that helps with making sure the float looks as beautiful as it does on Parade Day Fiesta floats. And every year the city works with them. So tell me what brings that partnership together every year.
Well, we are Fiesta Parade Float's oldest customer, and we have a very special relationship with Tim, the owner, and he's very helpful to us. He helps our association, because when the design contest comes out, he's our head judge, and he looks out over all the entries and helps us narrow them down so that we can pick the right one, and then he'll bring down 3 or 4 that he thinks are the best that could win. And then the board votes, and then we present it to the city and to city council, and they approve it. And once it's been approved by city council, Tim goes to work on our float. And, you know, a lot of the write-up that gets done, for the parade program, his people, you know, go into such detail about all the flowers and that. And this year, he actually came down and took a tour of the marsh and took lots of pictures and met with Tracy Drake and learned everything he could about the marsh to make our float look realistic.
And many people, actually, I was there on Parade Day, said that the float looked so real of the marsh, especially for people that have volunteered there for so long. Now, let's talk about, I mentioned some of the exotic flowers, but was there anything that was very unique, maybe the dry materials or flowers that were really remarkable to you?
You know, I'm never amazed anymore at the stuff they use to make the floats, because there are so many different kinds of seeds and flowers that we cut, some we put on whole. I had never seen the bark before, what we use for the bark, so that was very interesting. And I really loved the actual driftwood that was on the float. It was absolutely gorgeous, especially that one that was under the arch. I don't know if you saw that one, but it was absolutely fantastic.
And we were talking earlier about the float, and you said that, millions stay at home and watch the parade, but seeing the nitty-gritty details is something that people may not get to see if they don't go behind the scenes or see our coverage, for example.
That's correct. I mean, it looks beautiful on television. Multiply that, because when you see it in person, it takes your breath away. The day they did judging, we all got choked up. We were crying because we were so proud of our float.
And speaking of Judging Day, for another year, the City of Torrance won an award. So tell us about that and what this award signifies.
Okay, this year we won the Mayor's Trophy. And this is a floral design trophy that's presented to the city float that they felt was the best city entry. And we have never won this one before that I am aware of, and so it's kind of a great honor. And considering how many cities were entered into the parade this year, that was a great honor, and it's a great honor for our city.
Tell me how it is on Judging Day when you're waiting to find out if the float has won an award. Are all of you guys kind of on your tippy toes?
Well, unfortunately, we don't find out on Judging Day.
Mm-hmm.
We find out in the morning when they make the announcements on parade day. That's when we find out whether we have won or not. So, we're all biting our nails all night long wondering, and we try and take cues from watching the judges when they're judging. And this year, they seem to be really, really interested. And I will tell you that the floral director of Fiesta was in tears when they were doing the judging. He was so proud of that float. So we all had good vibes all week. We had people telling us, oh, you're going to win, you're going to win. So we said, please don't jinx us. But, from their mouths to the judges' ears.
And speaking of pride, the City of Torrance has so much pride, the residents, the Torrance Rose Float Association, to make sure that every year you have the budget to bring back a float. So how important is it that you have the opportunity to participate? I know your organization does a lot of fundraising throughout the year.
Yes, we do a lot of fundraising throughout the year, and then the city, contributes a major portion to the float. It's so important because we're so proud of our city, and we want to share that pride with the rest of the world. There are people that I've talked to that all across the country that know Torrance because of us being in the parade. When I used to work for a nationwide company, they'd say, where do you live? And I'd say, Torrance. Oh, you're in the Rose Parade. So people all over know us. And that's recognition that other places don't have, and it's probably a lot to do with the longevity. Like you said, we've had 63 floats in the parade. We have won 51 trophies. So we have a very good record, and so people expect when they see the Torrance float, they're going to see something fantastic.
And this year it was truly fantastic, but it wouldn't be possible again without the Torrance Rose Float Association. So tell our viewers a little bit about the association, how long it's been around, and if someone wants to become a member, how can they?
I am not the person to tell you how long it's been around. Actually, it's been around because originally, the city handled the float. Then it was handled by the 50-something club, I'm not sure, and the chamber. And then they turned it over to the Torrance Rose Float Association. And we have been handling it ever since. And then a few years back, when it was first started, the city completely paid for the float. But for the last 5 or 6 years, we've had to do major fundraising to help pay for the float. So, but it's, it's our love for doing it. And to become a member, all you have to do is go to our website. Our membership form is on the website. You can either print it and fill it out and send it in, or we actually have a link where you can do it all online. So we're always looking for members, and we love all the support we've gotten from the people in Torrance that are so proud of their float.
Great, and for many at home, they might not know, but This year's Rose Parade fun is done, but your team has already started planning for next year. So tell me about that. What is expected and how your team is searching for a design?
Well, we've already announced, it was actually kicked off over a month ago, our new design contest for any high school student that lives in the city of Torrance. They can submit their design to maybe be the Irene Say of next year and get to ride on the float. What happens is the students turn in their designs by January the 8th. Then Mr. Estes of Fiesta Parade Floats and 2 volunteers from Destination Art get together and they review all the entries, and then they pick out their top 3 or 4, and then Tim presents those to our board. The board votes, and then once we've made our choice, we take it to City Council for their approval, and once it's approved, work begins on the float. So
the contest is such a great idea. It'll be the 3rd year getting the younger generations involved. Have you seen a difference in the design, creativity because of this participation at all?
Well, in the past, the designs were all submitted to us by Fiesta Parade Floats. So he would come and bring us ideas, and we'd look at the ideas and pick what we wanted. Now it's much more Torrance it's truly a Torrance product now.
Mm-hmm.
The students' designs, he takes them, he embellishes them, he knows what needs to be done so that we can have an award-winning float. But without the students' input, we wouldn't have that.
What kind of commitment does it take to be a volunteer? And I know you mentioned that you're looking for some volunteers to work on committees as well as be a decorator.
That's right. All of our board members can always use help, especially our Ways and Means Committee. We do promo booths. We have to arrange restaurants for Roses. Comedy and Magic Club needs to be arranged. We also do our one big event every year, which this year, the last 2 years, has been a luau. So we can always use help on that and people to help us in promo booths when we're like at the Craftsman's Guild and whatever. And we also could use people to do telephone tree work. But to become a volunteer, and decorating, we always can use decorators. And the first decorating meeting is in October.
Okay.
And then we have another one in November. But you do have to be a member to decorate. So it's a great experience. And, we all get together on these Restaurants for Roses. It's a good way to see people
Mm-hmm.
and keep in touch with all of our members.
Bev, is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything you're looking forward to? I know you kind of have an idea of a theme for next year, but it's still a secret. And when will that be announced?
I don't have the exact date when it will be announced because it won't be announced until the new president of tournament is announced. Okay. We know who the new president is going to be because it's the current vice president. But Mr. Tibbet needs to finish his role, his ruling year, I guess you'd say. And then when the new person takes over, we'll have the new one. I can tell you that the theme has to do with music. We wrote up all the description we could for the contest so that the students would have an idea of what you could do. But again, it'll be, music can really change our lives, So you kind of look at things like that and, think in a generic term, kind of like making a difference type of thing, because it can.
Well, Bev, thank you so much for coming again on NEWSBREAK Live, and Happy New Year, and I can't wait to see what next year's float will look like.
Okay, and we hope we see you at our celebration dinner that's coming up the first Saturday in February.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
And if you're a student here in Torrance and you'd like to participate and would like any more information, definitely check out torrancerosefloat.org. The Torrance Rose Float Association is always accepting donations, and you can definitely go on their website for more information. Well, that does it for NEWSBREAK Live, and if you ever have news or video that you'd like to share, please email us at newsbreak@torranceca.gov. For Facebook and Twitter users, use hashtag NEWSBREAKLive. Have a great night.